The clothes that we are wearing, the coffee that we just had, and even the bus that we took to come here to Hello Tomorrow. Do you know what all these things have in common? All these things have been transported on a ship. And in fact, 80% of what we use and consume in our everyday life has been transported on a ship. And while this is done with the lowest carbon footprint of any mode of transport per ton transported, shipping is emitting a huge amount of pollutant emissions. In fact, by the time I finish this presentation, more than 30,000 tons of CO2 emissions will be emitted by the vessels transporting your favorite goods. And these emissions have a huge impact on human health. 2 people will be dead to people that are alive today by the time I finish my presentation. The International Maritime Organization, which is a United Nations regulatory body for the global shipping industry, has stated a clear goal for 2050. Shipping must reach at least 50% of a reduction in to 2008 levels. This might seem very ambitious, taking into consideration that shipping is so diverse. There are very different types of vessels, different types of operators, different types of customers, different types of routes, of ports. And there are 2 ways to solve this problem. One, which is being considered by the industry, is what I say a fuel-based approach. What they want to do is switch to alternative fuels. But this is not the way to go. There is another way which is much easier to understand. And it's by taking an energy-based approach. And by doing so, you realize that we have today the technologies to decarbonize shipping and reach the IMO 2050 goals. There is a technology that has been always in the shipping industry and that exists today. What's really curious about the shipping industry is that it started being 100% sustainable to become 100% pollutant. Centuries ago, we had sails that propelled the vessels with renewable energy, wind. And then with the introduction of the steam engine and the diesel engine, sails were just abandoned and used for recreational purposes. Sails are the missing part of this jigsaw. To decarbonize, shipping must go back to basics. Shipping must go back to basics for 3 reasons: advancements, money, and sustainability. Advancements. Going back to basics does not mean that we have to use traditional soft sails like the one Jack Sparrow used, but rather modern sail technologies, which are more similar to an airplane wing. When the wind impacts these sails, it generates a difference of pressure, which translates into a forward thrust that is used to move the vessel. And so all the thrust that is given by these sails does not have to be provided by the main engine, and thus we reduce fuel consumption and we reduce emissions. This transition between traditional sails and modern sails have been possible thanks to the advancements that have occurred throughout the 150 years since we abandoned sailing. We have machine learning, artificial intelligence, data analytics, new materials, new geometries, new control systems to make them autonomous. But don't get me wrong. Going back to basics does not mean that all the energy that the vessel requires has to be given by these modern sails. In fact, modern sails have to be used in a complementary way, in a hybrid way, together with other technologies. In the existing fleet, modern sails can give up to 30% of the energy required, and then you can add up some operational changes and some vessel optimization, and we can get well over the 50% mark and even 70% mark. The rest, the 30%, has to be delivered by the alternative fuels, which makes things much easier to crack. The second reason is money. Fuel today accounts for 60% of the operating expenses of ship owners and ship operators, being the largest one. And for those in the industry who are thinking about switching to alternative fuels, maybe hydrogen, maybe ammonia, the bad news is that these fuels are expensive today and will be still expensive in the future. They are between 3 to 10 times more expensive than the fuel that is being used today. So switching to these alternative fuels today just will rise up the operating expenses. And obviously, they will be subject to fluctuations, to price fluctuations. And on top, you have to consider that we will need to build new infrastructure to supply these alternative fuels, and that vessels will have to be retrofit. According to the Global Maritime Forum, if ammonia was the chosen alternative fuel, we would need between 1 to 1.4 trillion US dollars to build this infrastructure and to retrofit the vessels. There is a bigger problem to alternative fuels. And this is what I name the classic chicken and egg situation, which is where the shipping is finding itself. On one side, we have operators, ship owners, which are reluctant to adopt any alternative fuel until it has been demonstrated that it can be delivered at scale and that is globally available. And on the other side, we have energy providers, which are also reluctant to invest in this infrastructure until the market is showing a clear interest in one of the alternative fuels. The way to move through this situation is wind power. Wind is a free and will always be free. It's abundant, and it's infinite, so it's not subject to price volatility. And you do not need infrastructure to be built to deliver the wind, and neither onboard storage. The more the fleet can rely on wind, the less the operating expenses and the more stable they will be. The third reason is sustainability. Let's take hydrogen, which is one of the alternative fuels that the market is being considered right now. Well, hydrogen, only 4% of the hydrogen that is produced today is produced in a sustainable way, using electrolysis. So, supply of this hydrogen, this green hydrogen produced in a renewable way, will be tight, but demand will grow exponentially. And it's not a solution to burn the other type of hydrogen, because at the end, what we are doing is moving these emissions up to the production chain, and we are doing little to solve climate crisis. What about if we were able to produce this green hydrogen, in huge amounts, to be able to give it to the whole fleet? Well, there's something missing: efficiency. You can go the long way. You get wind, and you produce hydrogen to propel the vessels. But you have to go step by step, and going each step by step, you're converting the energy, and you're losing efficiency. In fact, by going the long way, only 10% of the original wind power is used. The rest is lost. Instead, you can go the short way. You use it directly to propel the vessel. And in this case, you get the highest efficiency possible. Efficiency, at the end of the day, has a lot to do with sustainability. I spent my last 7 years, together with my colleagues at Bound for Blue, developing modern sails and bringing them to the market. And I'm very proud to tell you that this technology is available today for the industry. We have built a lightweight solution, fully scalable in terms of size for all fleets, either existing and new build vessels. The system works completely autonomously, so you do not require any additional crew and neither training. And it can be folded for operating reasons thanks to a tilting mechanism. And the best part is that it's economically viable, so it's offering a payback below 5 years for ship owners and ship operators. The technology has been built and proven in some vessels, and interest among ship owners and operators is growing day after day, which clearly shows that there is a place for this technology, that this technology must be used. When I see these photos, I don't only see a team that was able to get to this point, but I also see a team that was able to look with another perspective at the problems, to build solutions using another lens. For these 3 reasons, advancements, money, and sustainability, reconsider the lens that you take targeting the problems, building your solutions. Sometimes nature can inspire you. Sometimes going back to basics makes a lot of sense, not only in the shipping industry, but can also make a lot of sense in your industry too. Sometimes you just have to take the concept, the wheel is already there. You have to build on top with other technologies. You have to give it another use than what it was originally intended for. On a planet where more than 90% of the world trade is transported on a ship, we cannot rely solely on alternative fuels. Only by going back to basics and bringing sails back to shipping again in a modern way, together with other technologies, only and only then, your clothes, your coffee, and the bus you take each morning will be delivered to you in a sustainable way.
Where are you going?
Sorry.
I'm like, oh.
Funny part.
Stay with me. Let me just ask you some questions, and maybe also the audience has some for you. When you came up with this idea, did you already check out if some other companies were, sort of thinking about doing this? Because I remember already in the 90s, somebody in Germany started out having these kind of sales, but somehow the project never really took off. Maybe it was too early, or they didn't have the timing right. So did you check out, was there anything, or did you look around and said, nobody's doing this, and we should be doing this?
Sure. So when you look at the industry, you look at the very beginnings, how sailing was used, you see that in the 80s, sails were also introduced because of the prices with fuel. And then the price went up, and then you had wind, which was free and that they could benefit from. But then later on, sustainability had nothing to play in the market, and then it was like somehow forgotten. And then it made sense to get back this technology up again. We are aeronautics in the company, engineers. So for us, it was like so obvious. I mean, you have this wind, and you can use it in a more efficient way. You have better geometry, so you have the airflow that is being used in airplanes. You have control systems. Our system works with a suction sail concept. So you can build a lot of things from other industries, and we saw there was a way. There are other solutions available, quite different. They work different in terms of aerodynamics, different features. But at the end, obviously, you look at the market.
Right. Can you explain a little bit more the technology? Because at least some people in the audience say, how do you create so much power with such a little surface area?
Because it's not just one sail, what you put on a vessel, you can put a lot. So just take into account that you have a lot of available space on deck that you can put. My master project was about the interaction between sails, so you can also have very fancy interactions that being together, they can even propel more, like you can see in normal sailing, several concepts. You can get you can also use weather optimization routes, so that can increase up to 20% more regarding the savings that you're getting. So you end up adding a lot of things. And the thing is, it's not just what you see, the hardware, but also the software, the logic, and how you operate it. Because you can have this technology on board and get zero saving because you're not operating it correctly. So that's the funny part, that the autonomous control system is able to orientate towards the wind in less than 1 second. So you're taking all the possible wind conditions, and because of the type of technology that you can orientate it towards the wind, the thing is that you're able to get profit from a vast majority of the winds, not just the ones coming from the back, like the one Jack Sparrow used, but a lot of wind directions.
And also we have another question from the audience. What is the current challenge to scale this to the global usage?
Yeah, so in our case, we don't build the technology, so we partner with companies. The good part is that the market is prepared to build these technologies at a worldwide level, and this has been demonstrated. So our first integrations were in Panama, now we are in Peru. The next one is in Spain. So this is not a hurdle in order to scale up. The difficult part has been throughout these years, which was a quite new technology, although it's based on a very ancient concept, which is sailing, to convince the market. So right now, things are moving very fast. There's a lot of money with deposit-on principles. The banks, the investors are not willing to invest in technologies that are still polluting. So ship owners are also forced that way. Then we also have every day more pressure from us, the consumers at the end of all the value chain, and pressing also operators to install new sustainable solutions. And obviously, because this solution is lowering down the costs, it makes a lot of sense, and selling it is much more easy.
And I think a lot of people in the audience also want to know, can you give us some numbers? Because they asked, so how much does a single sail propel? How much energy does it provide?
In that case, it really depends on the route that's followed. So you have a Northern Pacific, North Atlantic, so there are very good routes there. But when you go, for instance, to the Mediterranean, which is something pretty close to us here, in my case, Spain, here in France, so routes that you have to follow are not that good in terms of wind. So sometimes vessels that are navigating that area, although they could benefit from wind in other areas and would have a very good payback and very good savings, because they're navigating in areas that wind is not that abundant, then savings are very low, so they can maybe reach 5% of fuel savings. In best case, 30, 35 even. I mean, it really depends. And if you want to follow the winds, you can get even higher. So
it's possible, depending on also how you basically make it. Tell me, what is the next in store for you?
Scaling up, we want to make this technology a standard in the industry. As well as they have engines, they should have sails. You cannot think about it any other way, and that's our main purpose, our vision, and where we are going.
Thank you so much, Cristina, for taking the time and showing us today your project. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.